I don't know what it is that you might be thinking about. I don't know what it is that you might be wanting to do. But what I want you to understand right now, God is in the process of strengthening you beyond your wildest dreams. See, what God needs you to know in this season that you're entering into, you must cling on to faith. I'm going to repeat that for you again. In this season that you're entering into, God wants you to know that you must cling onto faith, because faith is the thing that God is going to use to position you. See, there's going to be hurdles. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be things and trials that you're going to be faced with that God is going to need in order to position you to make you stronger. But first, you must realize that you must have a positive mindset, because you continue to think positive is what's going to position you. You continue to believe that God will deliver you from the snare of the flower and from the noisome pestilence is what's going to position you. God needs you to know that vengeance is his. Anybody who's wrong did you, anybody who spoke bad about you, anybody who has done anything behind closed doors that you wasn't aware of, God wants you to know at this time he's handling it. God wants you to know that his wrath will find those who persecute you. Anybody who said anything that wasn't supposed to be said, God will handle it. God does not want you to resort to wrath. Correction. God does not want you to resort to anger. God does not want you to bring yourself down, because God wants you to know that you're on a different playing field. God wants you to know that he's already increased you. That's why people had to betray you. God wants you to know that he's already positioned you differently. That's why the jealousy is starting to become noticeable to you. So what you got to understand, the moment that you're able to detect when a person is no longer for you, that's because you've already been positioned. I need you to know that God is about to deliver you even for more greater. So what it's going to require you, it's going to require you to take that leap of faith. It's going to require you to allow your faith to be stronger than your fears. It's going to require you to be positioned differently. See, I don't know what you need at this moment, but God wants you to know that vengeance is his. God says in the book of Proverbs that he is the man who has all judgment. He is the man who searches every heart. He is the man who vindicates all. So when you trust in God and you allow God to be your avenger, guess what? He will increase you. He will make you whole. He will make you new. You don't have to go down to people level. See, let me tell you something about people. People, places, and things may think that you are of a low importance, but when you walk with God, God will show that who you really are. God wants you to know that when you step into rooms, you must step in the room with confidence and not arrogance. You must be confident that God sent you there. You must be confident that even though you don't see a way, that God will make a way. You must be confident that when God speaks to you, that no man could talk down to you. No man could belittle you. Because in previous seasons, you may have thought you was less than. In previous seasons, you may have thought that God forgot about you. But what God is about to do for you right now is about to shock everyone who ever spoke ill over you. What you got to understand, in this season that you're entering to, God wants you to step into your calling. God wants you to answer the knock that he's been knocking at your door. God has blessings that's about to be delivered at your footstool. God will correct it. God will also about to make your enemies your footstools, in which they're about to see the blessings in which God has given you. What you got to understand, God needs you to not resort to a form of anger. God does not want you to become conformed to confusion. God does not want you to be attached to the enemy in the places that no longer serve you, because God needs you to know it's in you and not on you. People see that God has relocated you. People see that God has increased you. People see that God has his favor over you. It's all about whether you're going to believe. Because when we as people don't know the worth in which God has given us, we tend to view ourselves as not a prized possession. But God wants you to know right now, somebody, you are his prized possession. You are greater. Look at me. You are everything that God needs you to be. Just because you went through a form of trial, just because you went through a form of suffering, doesn't mean that God can't use you. Because when God used Paul, Paul was once a killer. God was used Paul. Paul was once Saul. Paul killed followers of God. And guess what? God told DeMarcus, and when he came to Paul in the desert, that DeMarcus asked God, why did you choose him? God said, because he will suffer great things for my name's sake. So what God wants you to know, yes, you may have went through hell. Yes, you may have went through a form of shortcoming, but those trials and those tribulations that you went through was a necessary strength that was going to add on to your testimony, that was going to add on to those blessings that you have, because you made it through, because you seek God and you held on to God. And if you're not seeking God and holding on to God right now, God needs you to seek him and hold on to him, because when you're going through this storm, God wants you to know it's going to strengthen you, it's going to prepare you, it's going to test you, and it's going to make you be able to understand how to handle the blessings that comes after weathering that storm. God needs you to know that he's about to position you. God needs you to know he's about to make you whole. It's all about what are you believing, because as a man thinks, so is he. Trust God and know that God will deliver you from any form of suffering that you're facing. Trust God. I'm going to repeat that again. Trust God, because God is a man who will never lie. If God gave you a promise, it will come to pass. Do not allow the enemy to trip you up. Do not allow the enemy to make you think because God haven't given it to you now that it won't happen, because it will happen. It's just going to happen at God's time. Trust God at this time, and that God will deliver you from any form of shortcoming that you have.